Inside of this looming trade war, concerns have been raised about Canada's energy security because of our country's reliance on the United States for certain aspects of our oil and gas industry. Now, since the election began, we've heard federal leaders float plenty of ideas and even resurrect some older ones, like east-west pipelines. But the CEO of Energy NL says what this province needs now is clarity. So on behalf of the over 500 member companies in the energy supply and service sector, Charlene Johnson says she wrote a letter to all federal parties to learn more about their energy policies and where Newfoundland and Labrador's energy sector fits into their vision for Canada's future. I spoke with Charlene Johnson yesterday and started by asking her about what is at stake right now for her members.
Well, it's a tremendous opportunity now for our members to continue to support the economy in Newfoundland and Labrador, the amount of jobs, the amount of spin-offs that comes from our energy sector. So we're at a very critical time, especially with what is happening south of the border. Energy security is a big topic, but here at home, economic impact is a significant issue for our members and for our energy industry. So we did write the federal party leaders. There were 7 questions, mainly wanting to know their vision for where energy fits in Canada, but more specifically where Newfoundland and Labrador energy fits in. Our key ask during this election is to eliminate the emissions cap regulation. We see that as the most significant burden to develop our offshore resources here. And in the letter, we're also asking to call it energy security incentives to support energy development in our province, whether that be renewables or oil and gas. We have seen incentives in the past that have helped our industry thrive, and there's opportunities to do more of that in the future.
What will you be looking to hear in terms of incentives?
Well, really, Chrissy, the biggest incentive that we're asking for is that the government support our industry and eliminate the regulatory burdens that have been in place that have created uncertainty, that have caused investors to pause investing in our offshore. So the biggest thing we're asking for is that they support our industry and allow it to flourish. If they want to go further, which we would certainly support, there have been programs in the past like the Atlantic Investment Tax Credit. You want to go back all the way back to previous governments in the 70s when there was the Petroleum Incentive Program to incentivize exploration offshore. We'd certainly be supportive of that. But really, the biggest incentive is for them to eliminate the uncertainty in our industry and attract investment here.
And just going back to the greenhouse gas emissions cap regulations, in your note, you had mentioned that this is a violation of the Atlantic Accord. How so?
Well, Section 4 of the Atlantic Accord says that this act supersedes any other act or regulations of the federal government and that decisions cannot be made regarding production in our offshore without consulting with the provincial government here. And besides that, we are very supportive of reducing emissions in our offshore. We've already had a history of that. If you look at Hebron, they've reduced emissions by 33% between 2019 and 21. You see the C-Rose FPSO reduce emissions from 2007 to 2021 by almost 50%. We are lower carbon per barrel at extraction, 30% lower than the global average at extraction compared to others. And then you have the proposed Bay du Nord project, which is expected to be the lowest carbon emitting project in Canada. So we're already doing a lot to reduce emissions, and we'll continue to do that, especially with enhancements in technology and AI and additive manufacturing. But we see this emissions cap as a cap on production, and that is something that we cannot support. When you look at what this industry has done for our province, just in 2023 alone, it generated $2.4 billion in taxes and royalties to our government. When you look at the multiplier and the spin-off effect of this industry, in 2023, $65 million spent on recreation because of the induced effects of our offshore industry. This industry is not just important to those 17,000 people that are directly and indirectly employed. It's critical for our whole province, for public services, healthcare, roads, and so on. So we, again, the emissions cap, we see it as a production cap, and we see it as a detriment to investment here. If you look at the last 3 out of 4 bid rounds, offshore Newfoundland and Labrador, there were $0 bid. And you look at the years previous to that, there was $4 billion in bids. So the emission cap is part of that, but it's Bill C-69. It's 4 years for Bay to Nord environmental assessment. It's canceled bid rounds right next door in Nova Scotia, and the list goes on.
And there are also, of course, plenty of concerns about climate change. How are you measuring the case for environmental responsibility against the case for faster, wider development for oil and gas in this province?
Well, as long as the demand continues globally for oil, in which we're seeing that still over 100 million barrels a day and growing, we firmly believe that it should come from a place that has lower carbon oil, comes from a place where ESG is important, the environment, the social, the governance, the rule of law, the continuous improvement to continue to be even lower emitting. We have all of that. We're very fortunate to have that 30% lower average compared to global emissions at extraction. And I just gave some examples. There are other examples. Hibernia has reduced emissions from 2005 to 2021 by 29%. Terra Nova is doing the same. You're seeing cranes, diesel cranes, exchanged for electric cranes. You're seeing our supply vessels offshore putting in hybrid engines. The amount of technology that we're going to see over the next coming years is going to be very interesting to watch in terms of AI and all of the ways that we can continue to lower emissions. Some of it we don't even know yet, and that's really exciting. So we're very committed to continuing to lower emissions. But at the same time that the world needs oil, if it's lower at the time of extraction, that mathematically just goes to show that it's going to be lower. And you know, countries are looking to places that are focusing on ESG and lower emissions, and that's why we're a very attractive jurisdiction.
Wind energy and green hydrogen proposals and all of the potential that we were talking about years ago have seen significant deflation in both public buy-in and projected market value. What are you going to be looking to hear from the federal parties, particularly on the green hydrogen sector?
Well, we want to see that the investment tax credits that have been announced in the past remain. This industry, it is going through a period of reevaluating things now, and companies are still spending a lot of money, and there's still a tremendous amount of interest from Europe. And they are working on getting offtake agreements, but these incentives up to 30% and in some cases 40% from the federal government are critical to allowing these projects to develop. So we want to ensure that those incentives remain. And again, this is all part of the equation for providing the world with energy. And we've always said it's not either or. We're very fortunate to have the oil, we're very fortunate to have the wind, and we're very fortunate to have the hydro. And we want to develop all of this with government, with as low emissions as possible, but ensuring that the economic impact is there for our province. But as I mentioned, the energy security issue has really been brought to light in recent months with what's going on south of the border. And it's very important that we develop these resources now. Just in 2003 alone, we exported nearly $7 billion worth of oil to the rest of Canada, $2 billion in addition worth of oil to other Canadian provinces. With the support from the federal government and with them allowing us to flourish and develop our resources, we can develop more of that in a very short period of time. Tiebacks here, you can have more oil production within 18 to 24 months. And I'm really pleased to see that the conversation is changing in Canada. You're hearing more about pipelines now, and you're seeing the Prime Minister talk about it and premiers talking about, but we really need, and we're very supportive of that, but we want that conversation to move to the east now and realize that we have a product here that we can provide to the world. We're at tidewater, meaning there's no pipelines required. It will go on a vessel and go to anywhere in the world. So we're at a time when we have a tremendous opportunity to help with energy security. And we need a government who supports that.
That's Charlene Johnson, the CEO of Energy NL, speaking with me yesterday. So Johnson has sent her letter to all federal parties. And by the way, if you want to read it for yourself, it is up on their website, energynl.ca. She's hoping to get a response from all parties by April 18th. And she says she's happy to share the parties' responses about their policies on energy development in this province when they do send the answers.